Aloha.
Aloha, everyone. Michelle with Blossom Inner Wellness. I'm here with Michael again, and we're going to be talking about what is happening with the world banks. Where are they going down? What to know right now as far as what we're going through, and some positive stuff at the end we'll share as well. But Michael, thank you so much. And what would you like to tell everybody about what's happening with these banks? It's crazy.
That they aren't collapses, they're takeovers, and we're moving into a new monetary system.
What does that mean?
It means we're going to be, if you want to eat or do anything over the internet, buy anything, use a credit card, that's all going to require you having a card from the government that will have your social quotient, or as they call it, your terrorist threat level on there. And you will have to be a model citizen to be able to make any purchases in that world. And we do have a choice. We can use cash, but that'll just be for local people that will be illegally exchanging cash, because cash will be outlawed. Banks won't be using cash. They won't be issuing cash. They're just going to be issuing debits and credits in your account.
So why now? So you may be talking to people who've never heard of this before. So why is this happening?
It's happening because it's been in the works for well over a century. Right now it's called the Great Reset. Before that it was called Agenda 21. And the Fabian Society out of England has been engineering our society for quite some time now. George Orwell, 1984, he was a member of the Fabian Society. Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, as well. And the problem is they point towards a dystopian society with ultimate control over the people.
So when you're talking about this, so is there anything that, so you said that people, I always love because people do have choices. We have choices that we can make. Is there anything that's happening that is possibly that this won't happen? Because these banks are humongous and they're failing, and they're saying that they're not going to be bailed out again. So,
The way out is to create your own bank. Well, go ahead. We live on a farm. We're sampling the latest thing that we eat here,
Sesame seeds
and,
on it.
and this is like seed butter, like
Sea cheese.
brie. Well, it's like butter, but like cheese. It's like a brie. It's really good.
so this is the thing that you can start doing: grow your own food. Grow your own food. Eat your own food. She's making a new thing with leftover tofu that we had, and some seeds and pumpkin seeds, and some cheese. So that's one thing that we can
Wow.
do. We can't rely on the grocery stores to have everything that we need. So how can you make your own food?
Unless you have a good social quotient, which they're doing in China. Having a good social quotient means a whole list of things that you have to be, including fully vaccinated. They're just going to keep rolling out these booster shots until everyone's dead, I guess. So you don't want to go there.
And you don't need to. You don't need to, because your human body is amazing, and it does fight infection. The symptoms of sniffling and fever and coughing, those are actually your body's symptoms of trying to get rid of toxins that have entered the body. So detoxing, one of my favorite things to do is activated charcoal. One of the best things to just start to keep that regularly and keep it going. But let's go back to what's happening with the world banks and what we can do.
Let me go into, this is what President Biden said on Sunday after 2 days of the Silicon Valley Bank being collapsed. This is their narrative. He said, Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. After the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, the big picture, Biden promised to do whatever is needed to prevent any additional bank runs. So let's start there. What happened at Silicon Valley Bank has now happened to three banks. That's the 8th, 7th, and 6th largest banks in the country, representing well over half of the venture capital money that starts new businesses and in the country. So what was happening was, it gets into the inflation picture, which was created when they had a pandemic, which was created when they had the virus, the gain-of-function virus that they manufactured and they released upon the world.
And that is actually being proven right now in court. They've already said that. And there was actually, I think it was the head of the CDC. The head of the CDC even said, this is not natural. This is not normal. And what happened, he got booted. So I can't remember his name, Chris something or other, but that's in trial, in case right now, being proven.
So this virus was being worked on by Fauci at North Carolina University, and in 2014, our U.S. Congress made it illegal to do gain-of-function work. So what did he do in 2015? He took his government-funded grants over to Wuhan, China, and they started doing it there. They continued doing it there. So they manufactured this virus, which manufactured this pandemic, which made it a plandemic, and now they're using that as a way to get you to use this alternative cryptocurrency that's coming out. And so let me say that it's a new world order is what it is. The pandemic has been predicted for decades, and we knew it was coming, and we know the next one's coming in 2025 because they've already had their little
They're
powwow.
telling us. They tell us every single time. Even, I think it was the year before, I can't remember how many months before this one went out. Was it Gates? I can't remember who it was, but they said, we will have a pandemic in Trump's whatever his term. They literally stated it.
That was the reason to create the inflation. Now, what role does inflation play? Well, it becomes a scapegoat along with, for what's going on, for the banks failing. And they're not really failing, they're being taken over. Got to make that clear. They're not collapsing. The Federal Reserve is taking them over. Why can the Federal Reserve, a private corporation, be able to take over our banks? Because in the 2008 bailout law that allows private citizens to act as the Secretary of Treasury of the United States. So ever since then, Bernanke and now, what's her name, Yellen? She yells a lot. Yellen. They're taking over these banks. The largest bank takeover in the history of the United States was the Washington Mutual. $320 billion in assets, $180 billion in cash, and they crashed the stock of that company down to 9 cents. Then one day it went up to 18 cents, so it doubled in size. And overnight, 5 o'clock, Bernanke steps in, shuts down the bank, seizes the bank. The bank didn't fail. Bernanke seized the bank, and 15 minutes later sold it to Chase for $2.5 billion. That's a pretty good deal for Chase.
And there's one thing you want to know about the Federal Reserve. It was started in 1913, and over Christmas, I think Woodrow Wilson is the one who, President Woodrow Wilson is the one who put it into law. But that Federal Reserve is actually owned privately by the big bank companies, Chase, J.P. Morgan, I think Rockefeller, and all of those other head honcho people. They're the ones that started this. So when your Federal Reserve tax dollars, they don't even go to the government. They go to this private establishment. So that's one thing you want to know. And so he's saying the Federal Reserve, which is a private establishment, not owned by the government, not owned by the people, is taking over these banks.
Yeah, and the taxes that came out of that were to get people to go along with it. It was taxing the rich. So the upper 1% were taxing themselves. That's how it started. And then it gradually has grown out to everybody in every way possible. They're taxing us. And that's a level of control. So where we're at with this bank takeover thing is that FDIC about a month ago had a meeting. And in that meeting, the roundtable meeting of all the heads of all the central banks came together and said, well, let's switch over to the currency. And the currency, by the way, was launched the same day that we had the train derailment in Ohio, so nobody really heard of this currency getting launched.
Oh my gosh.
And it
I
was
didn't know
in
about
the making since last summer when Biden assigned a committee of people to study it. Then it was approved and this fall and launched this winter. And they decided that it had to happen on a Friday, and it had
And it
to,
did.
and then over the weekend things would get settled out, and new regulations regulating banks. Banking is different now for half the money in the country because of these new regulations that Biden announced on Sunday, and they said it would be targeted. So they're targeting key banks. I mean, you can't get more key than the Silicon Valley and all that money. And they're targeting these banks. It's going to roll out on a Friday, and by Monday morning, voila, we got a new system. I predict that in a few weeks, after a lot more banks get taken over, that they will announce not only the new regulations, but the new currency. And along with that, they're going to make dollars, cash, illegal. That's the part of their plan. So Signature Bank, HSBC, these are big banks. A lot of people are involved in that. So why is that important? It's important because to control a people, you have to control their money and their food. So you take and give people a card that they can go shopping at Safeway, but you won't have anything on the card if you don't have a good social score. And I just got into that. So it ties together the pandemic to the money. The food will be coming too, because you're only going to be able to use cash at a place that doesn't do banking, which is your farmer's market. But if we have our own banks, we can do our own banking. We don't have to carry a wad of cash around. And we also don't have to be pegged to the inflation that they created. So let me address the inflation. By establishing inflation, goes up, bonds go down. Silicon Valley Bank had to sell off a lot of their bonds at a loss, and then they announced to cover their 7,000 employees and so on. So they asked their friends and family to buy more stock. So they were going to raise capital by raising stock to cover for their losses in the bond market, which happened because of the inflation. The inflation happened. Inflation went up. The interest rates went up. The interest rate is what crashed the bond market. Okay, you see how they're connected, and then a crashed bond market. All these banks are having trouble balancing their books, and there was a run on the bank for a day, just a few hours, and then the Fed stepped in. So it's predictable what will happen when you say, wow, we need to raise money because we're taking a loss here. They created the bank run, and that created the reason to have new regulations on our banking system, new regulations on our money. And these banks are all tied together. When you take this much money and you put it in the hands of the government, you know that the United States cryptocurrencies it's going to be enforced. So, some of the ways that the government is going to narrate to you to coax you into joining their cryptocurrency is, first of all, they're going to offer you a monthly income. $1,000 a month was what Yang was proposing when he was running for president. Everyone said, wow, that sounds good. But think of it, if the government's just giving you money to live, like they were doing in the pandemic, they can have control over you. And you will say, okay, give me the card. It's like a EBT card, and you go shopping with it because they put money on there for you. So you don't even have to go work. You don't even have to own anything. And you'll be happy, the few that are left. And the other ways are this debt forgiveness. People have been talking for decades about Nasara and other things in the Bible, the Jubilee time of forgiving all debts. And they'll use that and say, come shop with this current new cryptocurrency and you won't have any debt anymore and you will never get debt again. And but you'll be limited to whatever your income is, and your income will be determined by your social score. If you're a good model citizen and you get all your booster shots, you'll probably get all $1,000 a month. Otherwise, you might get $100 a month because you've been a bad boy or girl.
Going against the system, going against the narrative.
You can see how they can control you. The whole value to the Great Reset of the new cryptocurrency is surveillance. And they'll be surveilling everything you do, including everywhere you go. This little card will have an RFID on it, and it'll tell the system where you are, who you visited, how far did you go from your house, and this 15-minute city they want. They don't want you going more than 15 minutes away from your
15
home.
miles.
It's 50 miles?
15 miles,
Yeah, 15.
right?
Well, 15 minutes. Yeah,
Oh, I see.
everything you need is right there in your building or just a few blocks away. And that's the part of the engineering, social engineering. They're creating a new society that's been spelled out for us. As dismal as 1984 is, it's very much coming true.
So what is something positive we can leave people with around this? One, grow your own food. It's really time to start looking at those how to grow your own food YouTube channels, and check out our the Ono Gardens webpage. We have a lot of different things that you would be able to boost your immune system from, our spilanthes and turmerics and moringa and super greens and things like that. But what else would you like to finish people with?
Okay, the world is being divided into two camps. Those that like to shop with plastic and those that like to shop with cash. Shopping with cash means you won't have to have a social quotient, or you won't be rated to be a terrorist threat or anything like that. You'll be free. So you can join with friends to grow your own food, make your own products, make
Get to know your
medicine,
neighbor and your farmers.
build shelter, get your needs met with your community. And cash will become our alternative currency. By having this cryptocurrency, cash will be the alternative currency. Figure that out. So then we have our own bank. And you can also patent your land, get it out of the system so you're not paying property taxes. They don't have that over you. And start your own PMA.
Private Membership Association. Private Membership Association is what Costco has, and actually all of the government agencies have private membership associations because they are actually pulled out of the system. And so if you have a private membership association, officers and government can't come to your place. This is how this one woman who had a dog grooming business was able to stay open during all the shutdowns because she had a private membership association, and none of those mandates, even though they're totally not legal, they're unlawful actually, she wasn't subjected to them. So anyway, we're going to head now because the battery's almost dead. But Michael, thank you so much. And anything, last things you want to share with just being you and knowing what you know and
Keep your spirits high, keep the faith. We can do this. These jokers are being sought out and they're being called out for their BS, and we're not going for it. Klaus Schwab, you have your own reset.
yep.
You can go live in Davos, and we'll put a fence up around it, and we can keep you in there.
That would be good. That would be good.
And then you can live happily ever after and not own anything.
Yes, that's for Klaus Schwab by himself, in there by himself. So other thing, last thing is get your spirituality. Like, start to connect with nature and really remember that you are way more than this human body. This is just a movie we're in. We came to play together, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So much love and much aloha to you.
Keep looking up.